I'm standing in my kitchen right now, holding the lease to my new apartment, and I still can't believe I'm here. 3 months ago, I was convinced I was losing my mind. My husband told me so. The doctors seemed to agree. Even I believed it. But the truth? The truth was so much worse than forgetting where I put my keys or what day it was. The truth was that the man I'd loved for 42 years had been stealing my sanity, one doctored meal at a time. Let me back up. Let me tell you how it really started, before that Sunday dinner when my twin sister switched our plates and everything exploded. It was a Tuesday morning in early spring, one of those first warm days when you finally crack the windows and let the New Orleans air flow through. I was folding laundry at the kitchen table with the TV on low, wearing my bright coral house dress with big pockets. The smell of black-eyed peas cooking with a ham hock filled the duplex, drifting through those thin walls we shared with the neighbors. Outside, the elevated train rumbled past our urban block, rattling the windows like it had done every 20 minutes for the past 15 years. My wedding ring caught the light as I folded one of Raymond's shirts. I paused, turning my hand to see the inscription that was barely visible anymore after all these years of wear. The gold was so thin in places you could almost see through it. Like me, I thought, worn down to nothing. That morning, like every morning for 42 years, I'd said the prayer before my feet touched the floor. Dear Lord, give me strength for this day. Give me patience. Help me remember. Help me be better. Help me remember. That's what I asked for every single day, because Raymond had convinced me I couldn't. I finished folding his shirts and stacked them neatly. Everything had to be perfect. Everything had to be organized exactly the way he wanted, or he'd get that look on his face. That disappointed, exhausted look that said I was failing him again, that I was too much work, too broken. The TV announcer's voice broke through my thoughts. Something about memory care facilities. I reached for the remote to change it, but my hand was shaking. When had that started? The shaking? Raymond walked into the kitchen and I jumped. Actually jumped like a scared animal. He noticed. Of course he noticed. You okay, baby? His voice was soft, concerned. The voice he used when other people were around, or when he was about to tell me something I'd done wrong. I'm fine. Just startled. You seem confused. Did you take your morning pills? I looked at the counter where the pill organizer sat. Had I? I couldn't remember. The fog in my head was so thick lately. Every morning felt like swimming through mud. I don't think so. He sighed. That disappointed sigh that made my chest tight. This is exactly what the doctor was talking about. You can't even remember if you took your medication. I'll take them now. He put his hand over mine as I reached for the organizer. Not those ones. I set out different ones this morning. The doctor changed your prescription, remember? We talked about this last week. We did? I searched my mind for the conversation, but found nothing. Just blank space where a memory should be. See? This is what I'm talking about. He opened the cabinet and pulled out a different bottle. You need to start writing things down. Making lists. The doctor said your memory is only going to get worse. My memory is only going to get worse. He'd been saying that for 2 years now. Ever since I turned 62 and started forgetting little things. Where I parked at the grocery store, whether I'd already added salt to the beans. Normal things that everyone forgets. But Raymond treated each incident like evidence of my decline. I took the pills he handed me with a glass of water. They were different colors than usual. Bigger. What are these? The new prescription. To help with the confusion. They make me feel funny. Dizzy. That's just your body adjusting. The doctor said it might take a few weeks. The doctor. We'd been to so many doctors. Or had we? Sometimes I couldn't remember the appointments themselves. Just Raymond telling me about them afterward. Telling me what the doctor said. What tests they'd run. What results came back. I never seemed to remember agreeing to the appointments in the first place. He kissed my forehead. I've got to run some errands. You stay here and rest. Don't try to cook anything else. You left the stove on twice last week. I did? The shame washed over me hot and thick. What if I'd burned the house down? What if I'd hurt someone? Maybe you should take my car keys, I heard myself say. If I'm that bad? His face brightened. You know what? That might be a good idea, just temporarily, until we get your medication regulated. He plucked my keys from the hook by the door like he'd been waiting for me to offer them. And just like that, I was trapped. But I told myself it was for the best. Raymond was protecting me, protecting others from me. Because I was sick. Because my brain wasn't working right. Because I couldn't be trusted anymore. That's what I believed. That's what he'd taught me to believe. I spent that afternoon like I spent most afternoons, crocheting while listening to the radio. It was the only thing I could still do without supervision, without Raymond hovering over me pointing out my mistakes. The repetitive motion soothed me. Loop, pull through, loop, pull through. I was making an Afghan, something simple in alternating rows of cream and sky blue. The radio played old songs from the 50s, the kind my mama used to dance to in our kitchen when Diane and I were little. Diane, my twin sister. I hadn't seen her in weeks, maybe months. Raymond said she was busy, that she'd call when she had time, but something about that felt wrong. Diane and I used to talk every day, every single day since we were born, practically. Even when her husband got that job in Baton Rouge and she moved an hour away, we'd still call, still visit every weekend. When had that stopped? I tried to remember the last conversation we'd had, but the memories were slippery, like trying to hold water in your hands. The phone rang. I reached for it, but Raymond appeared from nowhere and grabbed it first. I'll get it. You rest. But what if it's Diane? His jaw tightened. It's not Diane. He checked the caller ID. Just a telemarketer. He unplugged the phone from the wall. You know these calls upset you, make you confused. I'll plug it back in later. I watched him take the phone to his office and close the door. Something twisted in my stomach. Something that felt like fear. But I couldn't name why. You're being paranoid, I told myself. He's taking care of you. You should be grateful. I went back to my crocheting. Loop, pull through, loop, pull through. The rhythm usually calmed me, but today my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I gave up after dropping the hook for the third time and turned up the radio instead. The evening news came on. Something about financial scams targeting elderly people. I should pay attention to that, I thought. Make sure nobody takes advantage of me. The irony of that thought wouldn't hit me until much later. Raymond came home around 6 with takeout. Chinese food in those white containers with the wire handles. My favorite used to be shrimp lo mein, but lately it all tasted the same. Everything tasted like cardboard or metal or nothing at all. I made us plates and we ate in front of the TV. He talked about his day, about people I used to know but couldn't quite place anymore. I nodded and made the right sounds, but inside I felt like I was watching my life through a foggy window. Present, but separate. There, but not really. After dinner, the familiar heavy feeling settled over me. My eyelids drooped. My thoughts scattered. You should go to bed early, Raymond said. You look exhausted. It's only 7:30. You need your rest. The doctor said sleep is important for your condition. My condition. He said it like it was a fact, like it was written in stone somewhere. I didn't even know what my condition was called. Alzheimer's? Dementia? He'd mentioned both, but never in a way I could grasp. I went to bed and fell asleep almost instantly, heavy and dreamless. When I woke, it was light outside and Raymond was already gone. A note on the counter said he'd be back by lunch. Don't cook anything. The days blurred together like watercolors running in the rain. Doctor appointments I couldn't remember. Papers Raymond needed me to sign for our protection, for estate planning, for making things easier when we got older. I signed because he asked me to, because he said it was important. because I trusted him. That trust was killing me. Literally. But I didn't know that yet. I wouldn't know until that Sunday dinner 2 months later when Diane came over with her famous lemon cake and switched our plates. When she whispered "trust me" into my ear and my husband's face went white as a sheet. When my whole world cracked open and I finally saw the truth. But we're not there yet. First, you need to understand how deep the hole was that I'd fallen into. How completely he'd convinced me that I was the problem, that I was broken beyond repair. Because that's what makes this kind of betrayal so devastating. It's not just what they do to you. It's what they make you do to yourself. I stopped calling friends because I was embarrassed about my memory. I stopped going to church because I couldn't remember people's names. I stopped doing anything that required me to be competent or capable or whole. I made myself smaller and smaller until I was barely visible, even to myself. And Raymond was there every step of the way, guiding me down into the darkness, holding my hand as he pushed me under. My twin sister saved my life. But first, she had to prove to me that I still had a life worth saving. And that Sunday dinner? That was just the beginning. The weeks leading up to that dinner were some of the hardest I can remember. Though remember is a funny word for what I could do back then. It was more like existing in a permanent haze, where nothing felt quite real and nothing quite made sense. Raymond had convinced me I needed to stay home most of the time, for my safety. He'd tell me stories about things I'd done that I had no memory of, wandering outside in the middle of the night in my nightgown, leaving the stove on with nothing in the pot, getting lost on our own street and a neighbor having to bring me home. None of it felt real, but the shame of it did. The humiliation of being that kind of burden. I found myself apologizing constantly for things I didn't remember doing. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. And Raymond would hug me and say, "It's not your fault. You're sick. We'll get through this together." Except we weren't getting through anything. I was getting worse. Or at least that's what I believed. The pills changed every few weeks. Different colors, different sizes. Raymond said the doctors were still trying to find the right combination. Sometimes the new pills made me sleep 14 hours straight. Sometimes they made my hands shake so bad I couldn't hold a cup. Sometimes they made the room spin like I was drunk. But I took them anyway. Every single one. Because I thought they were helping me. One morning I woke up and couldn't remember what year it was. I panicked, called for Raymond. He came running and found me in bed crying, disoriented, terrified. "What year is it? What year is it?" "It's 2024, baby. You're okay. You just had a bad dream." But it didn't feel like a dream. It felt like my mind was slipping away piece by piece, and I was powerless to stop it. He helped me to the bathroom, made me breakfast, set out my pills. He was so patient, so gentle, so concerned. If you'd asked me then, I would have said I had the most devoted husband in the world. A man who stayed when so many others would have left. A man who loved me even though I was becoming a shell of who I used to be. I would have been wrong, but I didn't know that yet. I started keeping a notebook, trying to write down things I needed to remember, appointments, conversations, things I needed to do. But when I'd go back and read what I'd written, none of it made sense. My handwriting looked strange, loopy, and wrong. The words seemed to be in the right order, but didn't connect to anything real. I showed Raymond one day, asked if it looked weird to him. He read it carefully, his face full of concern. "Baby, you wrote this 2 days ago. Don't you remember writing it?" I searched my mind. I had a vague sense of sitting at the table with the notebook, but no clear memory. "No," I admitted. He closed the notebook gently. "Maybe we should stop with the lists. They're just making you more confused, making you feel worse about what you can't remember." And I believed him. I put the notebook in a drawer and didn't open it again. Looking back now, I wonder what was actually in that notebook, what I'd really written. If maybe I'd been documenting the truth without even knowing it. but Raymond made sure I'd never find out. The isolation got worse. He told me Diane kept canceling visits, that my old friends from church had stopped calling because I got too confused on the phone and it upset them, that even the neighbors had asked him to keep me inside because I'd been knocking on their doors at strange hours, saying strange things. Everyone was pulling away from me because I was too much to handle. That's what he said, and I believed it. So when Diane called one Saturday and asked if she could come for Sunday dinner, I was shocked that Raymond said yes. "She really wants to see you," he said, "and I think it might be good. Give you something to look forward to." I spent all of Saturday trying to clean the house, though I kept forgetting what room I was supposed to be working on. I'd start in the kitchen, wander to the bedroom, end up in the bathroom holding a dish towel and unable to remember why. Raymond found me like that and guided me back to the couch. "You rest. I'll take care of it." And he did. He cleaned the whole house while I sat there feeling useless, watching the afternoon light move across the walls and trying to remember what day it was. Sunday morning, I said my prayer with extra fervor. "Please, God, let me be clear today. Let me remember things. Let me not embarrass myself in front of my sister. Let me be the person I used to be, just for a few hours." I wanted so badly to be normal again. To prove to Diane that I was still in here somewhere, still the twin sister she'd grown up with, still the woman who used to crack her up with terrible jokes and knew every secret she'd ever had. But I was terrified that she'd see what everyone else saw, a woman who was disappearing. Raymond made breakfast and set out my morning pills, more than usual. I questioned it for the first time in months. That seems like a lot. The doctor increased your dosage. You had a really bad episode last week, don't you remember? I didn't remember. I never remembered. So I took the pills. Within an hour, I felt wrong, disconnected from my body. The room seemed too bright and too distant at the same time. My thoughts moved like honey, slow and stuck. Raymond noticed. "Maybe you should lie down before Diane gets here. You don't look good. I don't feel good. It's probably just anxiety. About seeing your sister. You always get worked up when people visit." Did I? I couldn't remember that either. Couldn't remember the last time anyone had visited at all. I lay down on the couch and closed my eyes. The elevated train rumbled past and the whole duplex shook. Usually that sound annoyed me, but today it felt comforting. Proof that the world was still moving, still real, even if I wasn't sure I was. I must have dozed off because the next thing I knew, Diane was standing over me saying my name. I opened my eyes and there she was. My twin, my mirror, the other half of me, except she looked different. Thinner, harder. Her jaw was set in a way I recognized from childhood, from all the times she'd gotten in trouble for standing up to bullies or talking back to teachers who treated us differently because we were black girls from the neighborhood near the train tracks. Diane only got that look when she was ready to fight. "Hey, sleepyhead," she said, but her voice was tight, strained. I tried to sit up, but the room spun. Raymond appeared with a glass of water. She was just resting. She's been having a hard week. Diane's eyes cut to him, sharp as glass, then back to me. "How are you feeling?" "Tired, confused, the usual." She sat down next to me and took my hand. Her fingers were warm and strong. "Real. When's the last time you left this house?" "I don't know. I can't drive anymore." "Why not?" Raymond answered for me. "She's not safe." The doctors agreed. Diane ignored him completely, kept her eyes on me. "Do you remember the last time we talked?" "Really talked?" I searched my memory but came up empty. "Not really. It was 3 months ago. I've been calling, but Raymond says you're always sleeping or too confused to talk." I looked at Raymond. "Is that true?" "You don't remember the calls, baby. That's part of your condition. You get agitated when you talk to people. It's better if you rest." Something flickered in Diane's face. Rage, maybe. Or grief. She squeezed my hand harder. I made lemon cake. Your favorite. Let's eat. Dinner was strange. Diane had brought everything, insisted on setting the table herself. Raymond tried to help, but she waved him off. I've got it. She'd made baked chicken, green beans, rice, and that lemon cake. The smell should have made my mouth water, but I couldn't feel hunger anymore. Couldn't feel much of anything except that heavy fog that never lifted. We sat down. Raymond blessed the food, his voice smooth and practiced. When he finished, Diane started fixing our plates. She gave me a big scoop of rice, some green beans, a piece of chicken. Then she turned to Raymond. Your plate. He held it out. She gave him rice, beans, chicken, started to hand it back, then stopped. She looked at me, at him, at the plates, and switched them. She put the plate she'd made for me in front of him, put his plate in front of me, and leaned close to my ear. Trust me. Raymond's face went white, completely white. He reached across the table fast, tried to switch the plates back. Diane's hand came down on his wrist like a vice. Let's see what happens when she eats from your plate for once. The room went silent except for the sound of the TV in the other room, some game show with canned laughter. Raymond's voice came out strangled. What are you talking about? Diane didn't move, didn't blink. Eat your dinner. I don't understand what's happening, I said. My voice sounded small, childlike. Diane's eyes were still on Raymond. You're going to eat every bite on that plate, and then we're all going to sit here and see how you feel in about 30 minutes. That's insane. Raymond tried to laugh, but it came out wrong. Broken. Is it? Diane's voice was cold. So cold. Because I know what you've been doing. I've known for 2 weeks. I know about the pills that aren't from any doctor. I know about the pharmacist friend who's been helping you. I know exactly what you've been putting in her food. The world stopped. Everything stopped. I looked at Raymond, at his white face, at the way his hands were shaking, at the sweat on his forehead. Eat the dinner, Diane said. Or I call the police right now. I'm not eating anything. Raymond stood up so fast his chair fell over. You're crazy. You've always been jealous of what we have. Sit down. No. Diane pulled out her phone. Fine. I've got the recording of your phone conversation from 2 weeks ago. The one where you talked about dosages, about keeping her confused enough to be manageable. Should I play it for her? Or should I just call 911? My heart was pounding. My head was spinning, but not from the usual fog. From shock. From horror. From something trying to surface in my mind that had been pushed down for so long I'd forgotten it was there. Raymond sat back down. His face was no longer white. It was red. Angry. You've been poisoning me? My voice cracked. My own voice, sounding like it belonged to someone else. He didn't answer, just stared at the plate in front of him. Diane's voice was steady. He's been putting something in your food for 2 years, making you sick, making you confused. So he could tell doctors you had dementia, so he could get power of attorney, so he could take everything you've worked for your whole life. 2 years. 2 years of thinking I was losing my mind. 2 years of apologizing for existing. 2 years of being smaller and smaller until I almost disappeared. And it was him. All of him. I stood up. My legs were shaking, but I stood. The wedding ring on my finger, worn so thin you could barely read the inscription, suddenly felt like a shackle. Get out, I whispered. Raymond looked at me like I'd slapped him. Baby, she's lying. Get out! The sound that came out of me didn't sound human. It was rage and grief and 2 years of stolen life erupting all at once. He tried one more time. You're confused. You're sick. You need me. Diane stood up next to me. She already called my lawyer. We already filed for emergency protective order. You've got 30 seconds to leave before I call the police and they drag you out in handcuffs. He looked between us. Two identical faces staring him down. Twins, mirrors, united. And he must have seen something in our eyes that told him it was over because he grabbed his keys and walked out. Didn't even close the door behind him. I heard his car start, heard him peel out of the shared driveway, and then I collapsed. Diane caught me before I hit the floor, held me while I screamed, while I cried, while every emotion I'd been too drugged to feel for 2 years came pouring out. "I've got you," she kept saying. "I've got you. You're safe now." But I didn't feel safe. I felt like my entire reality had shattered, like everything I'd believed about my life, my marriage, my mind was a lie. "How did you know?" I finally managed to ask. "I came by 2 weeks ago. Unannounced. You were sleeping." He was in the garage on the phone. Diane's voice was tight. "I heard him talking about keeping you disoriented. About the next dosage adjustment. I recorded it. Then I started digging." She helped me to the couch, sat next to me, held my hand. I went to my doctor, had her run tests, toxicology, everything. Then I got a lawyer. We've been building the case. Tonight was the final proof we needed. "The plate," I said, "the plate you switched, has sodium pentothal in it. Not enough to kill you, but enough to make you disoriented, confused, dizzy. He's been doing it for 2 years, increasing the dose gradually so nobody would notice." My stomach turned. All those pills, all those doctor's appointments. Was any of it real? The doctors were real, but he was lying to them, telling them you had symptoms you didn't have. They prescribed memory medication, and he was supplementing it with his own drugs, making you worse instead of better. I felt sick, actually physically sick. Why would he do this? Money. Diane's voice was flat. "He cleaned out your accounts, your pension, the money your mama left you, everything. He needed you incompetent so he could have full control. How much? All of it. Over $300,000. I couldn't breathe, couldn't process it. $300,000, 40 years of work, my mother's inheritance, my security, my future, gone. And my mind. He took my mind. He made me think I was disappearing, that I was broken, that I was worthless." Diane pulled me close. "You're not broken. You were being poisoned. There's a difference. But how do I know what's real? How do I know if my memories are real or if they're from the drugs? How do I know if I can trust my own mind?" "We're going to find out." Diane's voice was fierce. "My doctor is expecting us tomorrow morning. She's going to run every test. Figure out exactly what he gave you and how to get it out of your system. And then we're going to get you back. What if there's nothing to get back? What if I really am sick?" "You're not sick. You're drugged. Once it's out of your system, you'll see. You'll remember. You'll be yourself again." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her so badly. But 2 years of being told I was broken doesn't go away in one night. 2 years of being made to doubt every thought, every memory, every feeling, doesn't just evaporate because you learn the truth. That's the cruelest part of this kind of betrayal. Even after you know what was done to you, you still can't fully trust yourself. The damage goes so deep. I slept at Diane's house that night, in her guest room that smelled like lavender and clean sheets. She gave me pajamas and sat with me until I fell asleep. For the first time in 2 years, I didn't take any pills before bed. And for the first time in 2 years, I woke up clear-headed. Not completely clear. The drugs were still in my system, but clearer. Like someone had wiped a dirty window and I could see through it, just a little. Diane was already awake, coffee made. She looked at me carefully. How do you feel? Different. I can think. It's still fuzzy, but I can think. She smiled. That's the beginning. We went to her doctor that morning. A black woman named Dr. Harris who looked at me with kind eyes and didn't talk to me like I was a child. She ran blood tests, urine tests, cognitive tests, asked me questions and actually listened to my answers. When the results came back, she sat down across from me and said, "You don't have dementia. You don't have Alzheimer's. You have been systematically poisoned." Hearing it from a medical professional made it real in a way it hadn't been before. I cried. Dr. Harris handed me tissues and waited. How long until it's out of my system? Depends on what he was giving you. Based on your symptoms, I'd guess a combination of benzodiazepines and possibly some kind of sedative. It could take weeks for full clearance, maybe months. But you'll start feeling better within days. And my memory? Some things might come back, some might not. But the good news is, your brain isn't damaged. It's just been suppressed. Once the drugs are gone, you should return to your baseline. Your baseline. What a gift that phrase was. The idea that I had a baseline, that there was a real me underneath all of this. Dr. Harris prescribed medications to help clear my system faster. Gave me the name of a therapist who specialized in abuse survivors, set up a follow-up appointment for the next week. As we were leaving, she put her hand on my arm. You're one of the lucky ones. Most people in your situation don't get caught in time. Don't have a sister who noticed. Don't have proof. I don't feel lucky. You will. Once you start getting yourself back, you'll feel lucky to be alive. From the doctor's office, Diane took me to her lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia who laid out the plan. We filed for an emergency protective order. He can't contact you, can't come near you. If he tries, he goes to jail. What about the money? That's harder. He had legal power of attorney. He didn't technically steal it. He just moved it while acting as your legal representative. But I wasn't incompetent. He made me incompetent. I know. And we're going to prove that. But it's going to take time. We need medical documentation. We need to show a pattern of fraud. We need to prove he deliberately incapacitated you for financial gain. How long? Months? Maybe a year. And even then, we might not get it all back. The weight of it crashed over me. Even if we won, I'd lost so much. Time. Money. Myself. But here's what we can do, Patricia continued. We can make sure he faces consequences. This is elder abuse. This is fraud. This is assault. We can press charges. Will he go to jail? Maybe. If the DA takes the case. If we can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. I want him to go to jail. Diane squeezed my hand. Then we fight. The next few weeks were the hardest of my life. As the drugs cleared my system, I started remembering things. Real things. Things that had actually happened versus the false memories Raymond had planted. I remembered calling Diane and having Raymond hang up the phone, telling me she was busy. I remembered asking to go to church and being told I'd gotten too confused last time and embarrassed myself when I'd never gone at all. I remembered the notebook I'd kept, and when Diane retrieved it from the house, I read what I'd actually written. He's watching me all the time. I don't feel safe. Something is wrong with the food. I feel sick after every meal he makes. I'm not as confused as he says I am. Why doesn't anyone believe me? I'd known. Some part of me had known the whole time. But the drugs made it impossible to hold on to that knowledge long enough to act on it. Reading those words in my own handwriting broke something open in me. Rage. Pure, clean rage. He'd stolen 2 years of my life. 2 years I could never get back. 2 years of thinking I was dying, disappearing, becoming nothing. I wanted revenge. I wanted him to hurt the way I'd hurt. I wanted everyone to know what he'd done, but I also wanted something else. I wanted my life back, the real one, the one where I was competent and whole and mine. So I made a plan with Diane and Patricia. We were going to set a trap. We were going to create a test situation to expose him publicly, in a way that left no doubt about what he'd done. And we were going to do it at church, in front of the whole community, in front of everyone who knew us, who'd watched us build our life together over 42 years. Because that's where the betrayal would hurt him most. Not in his wallet, not in a courtroom, in his reputation, in his standing among the people whose opinions he actually cared about. The plan was simple. I'd go back to church after weeks of absence. I'd stand up during testimony time and tell the truth, every bit of it. And we'd invited witnesses. Dr. Harris would be there with medical records. Patricia would be there with legal documents. Diane would be there with her recording. Raymond wouldn't know any of this. He'd think I was too confused to make accusations stick, too damaged to be believed. He was wrong. The Sunday we chose was in late spring, the windows of the church wide open, the same warm breeze that had been blowing through my duplex the day Diane switched our plates. Full circle. I wore a dress I'd picked out myself. Not the bright coral house dress with big pockets that I'd worn like a uniform for months. A real dress. Navy blue with white flowers. Something that made me look like myself again. I walked into that church with Diane on one side and Patricia on the other. Dr. Harris was already seated in the back. The lawyer had arranged for a notary and 2 witnesses to be present to document everything. Raymond was in his usual pew, 4th row, left side. He saw me and his face went through about 15 emotions in 3 seconds. Shock, fear, calculation. Then that smooth, concerned mask slid back into place. He started to stand, to come to me, but Diane blocked him. Sit down. The service started. Pastor Williams preached about truth and justice and the courage it takes to speak up when you've been wronged. I wondered if Diane had talked to him, prepared him for what was about to happen. When testimony time came, I stood up. My legs shook, but I stood. I have something I need to say. The church went quiet. Everyone turned to look at me, some with concern, some with curiosity. Raymond's face was frozen. My name is Margaret Ann Thompson. I'm 64 years old, and for the past 2 years my husband has been poisoning me. Someone gasped. Multiple people. Raymond started to stand, but 2 men from the church security team were suddenly flanking him. Also arranged by Patricia, I realized. I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. The words poured out. He's been putting drugs in my food to make me confused, to make me forgetful, to make me seem like I had dementia so he could take control of my money, my pension, my inheritance, everything I worked for my whole life. He convinced me I was losing my mind when the only thing I was losing was my freedom. He isolated me from my sister. He took my car keys. He monitored my phone calls. He made me believe I was too sick to make my own decisions. But I'm not sick. I was being poisoned. I pulled out the medical records Dr. Harris had prepared, held them up. These are toxicology reports showing exactly what was in my system. Drugs that were never prescribed by any doctor. Drugs that cause disorientation and memory loss. Drugs my husband was giving me every single day. Raymond finally found his voice. She's confused. This is part of her condition. She doesn't know what she's saying. I turned to look at him. Really looked at him for the first time since I'd left. He looked smaller somehow, diminished, or maybe I was just seeing him clearly for the first time in years. I know exactly what I'm saying. And I have proof. Diane stood up, held up her phone. I have a recording of him discussing dosages with his pharmacist friend, talking about how to keep her manageable. How to make sure she stayed confused enough to sign whatever papers he needed. She pressed play. Raymond's voice filled the church, tinny through the phone speaker, but unmistakable. Just enough to keep her disoriented. We can't have her asking too many questions. The silence that followed was deafening. I watched Raymond's face. Watched him realize it was over, that he couldn't talk his way out of this. Couldn't gaslight an entire church full of witnesses and documented evidence. He tried anyway. You don't understand. I was trying to protect her. She was getting so bad, making dangerous decisions, I had to take control for her own good. Protect me? My voice came out hard, cold. You stole $300,000 from me. You made me think I was losing my mind. You isolated me from everyone who loved me. You poisoned me. Poisoned me. For 2 years. And you know what the worst part is? I believed you. I believed I was broken. I believed I was the problem. I believed I was too much trouble and you were a saint for staying. I wasn't broken. I was being broken. By you. The church erupted. People shouting. Some at Raymond. Some trying to restore order. Pastor Williams calling for calm. Raymond stood up, tried to push past the security guards. They held firm. You can't prove any of this. It's her word against mine. Patricia stood up from her seat in the back. Actually, we can prove it. And we have. The district attorney's office will be filing charges tomorrow for elder abuse, fraud, and assault. You're going to be arrested. The color drained from his face. You're insane. All of you. I stepped into the aisle, walked right up to him, close enough to see the sweat on his forehead, close enough to smell the fear. I'm not insane. I'm not confused. I'm not sick. I'm angry. And I'm done. I pulled off my wedding ring. That thin band of gold worn so smooth you could barely read the inscription. The one I'd worn for 42 years through good times and bad, through births and deaths and everything in between. I dropped it on the floor between us. It made a tiny sound, almost nothing, but it felt like an earthquake. Then I turned and walked out of that church with my head high. Diane on one side, Patricia on the other. Dr. Harris falling in step behind us. I could hear the chaos erupting in my wake, could hear Raymond shouting, could hear Pastor Williams trying to restore order. But I didn't look back, not even once. Outside the church, in the parking lot where the spring sun was warm and bright, I took my first full breath in 2 years. The truth was out. The lies were exposed. The trap had worked perfectly, and I was free. Over the following weeks, things moved fast and slow at the same time. Fast in terms of legal proceedings, slow in terms of my own healing. The DA did file charges, elder abuse, fraud, assault with a deadly weapon since the drugs qualified. Raymond was arrested and released on bail pending trial. His family closed ranks around him. His sister called me a liar. His brother said I'd always been unstable. His mother, who I'd loved like my own for 4 decades, told anyone who would listen that I was making it all up for attention. That hurt. Not gonna lie. That hurt almost as much as the original betrayal. To be disbelieved by people who'd known me my whole adult life. To be painted as the crazy one even with all the evidence laid out. But you know what? I didn't need them to believe me. I had the truth. I had proof. I had my sister and my real friends and a whole congregation of people who'd witnessed my testimony and seen the evidence with their own eyes. His family could believe whatever they wanted. I was building a new family. The trial took 8 months. 8 months of depositions and medical experts and character witnesses. 8 months of reliving every moment of those 2 years. 8 months of having defense attorneys try to paint me as vindictive, confused, money-hungry. But we had the evidence. We had the toxicology reports. We had the recording. We had my medical records showing dramatic improvement once I stopped ingesting the drugs. The jury took 4 hours to convict him on all counts. He got 6 years. Not enough, in my opinion. Not nearly enough for 2 years of stolen life. But it was something. It was justice. Sort of. The money was harder. He'd moved it around, invested it, spent some of it. We got back about half through asset forfeiture and restitution orders. $150,000. Enough to rebuild on. Not enough to replace what was taken. But here's the thing. The money wasn't the point anymore. Not really. The point was my mind, myself, my freedom. And I got all of that back. Within 3 months of stopping the drugs, I was clear. Completely clear. My memory came back. My energy returned. The shaking stopped. The fog lifted. It was like waking up from a nightmare that had lasted 2 years. Dr. Harris monitored my progress, said I was one of the most dramatic recoveries she'd ever seen. Because I wasn't actually sick. I was just drugged. Take away the drugs. Get back the person. I started rebuilding my life piece by piece. First thing I did was sign my own name on a lease for a small apartment in my old neighborhood where I still had friends from childhood. 1 bedroom, hardwood floors, windows that overlooked the street where Diane and I used to play double dutch. That lease was my liberation symbol. My name, my signature, my money, my choice, my life. I started going back to church, not the one where Raymond and I went together. That was too tangled up in the past. But a smaller church 3 blocks from my new apartment, a place where nobody knew my story. Where I could just be Margaret, where I could start fresh. I reconnected with old friends, women I'd pulled away from during those 2 years because I was embarrassed about my memory. They welcomed me back with open arms, told me they'd known something was wrong but didn't know how to help. I started crocheting again, not just mindless Afghans while the radio played. Real projects. Complicated patterns. I made a shawl for Diane, a blanket for Pastor Williams's new grandbaby, a set of dishcloths for Dr. Harris. Each stitch felt like reclaiming something, like proving I could still do this, still make things, still have a hobby that was mine. And you know what else I did? I started saving for a car, not just any car. The Audi A8 in graphite gray I'd always dreamed about. The one Raymond said was too expensive, too impractical, too much for someone like me. I didn't care if it was impractical. I wanted it. And I was going to get it. Because I could. Because my money was mine again. Because I got to decide what was too much or not enough. Every week I put a little aside, $50, $100. Whatever I could manage on my restored pension and the money we'd recovered. It was slow going, but I didn't care. The saving was almost as satisfying as the getting would be. 6 months after the trial, I walked past a used car lot, and there it was. Not new, but beautiful. 7 years old with 60,000 miles. Graphite gray, leather seats, sunroof. And it was exactly my budget. I bought it that day. Paid cash, drove it off the lot with the windows down and the radio up, feeling like I'd won something bigger than a trial. I'd won myself back. But I don't want to make it sound like it was all triumph and healing and driving into the sunset. Because it wasn't. The damage Raymond did went deep. Deeper than the drugs. Deeper than the money. The hardest part was learning to trust myself again. Learning that when I forgot where I put my keys, it was just normal forgetting. Not a sign of disease. Not proof I was broken. Learning that confusion and exhaustion were human conditions, not evidence of incompetence. Learning that I could make decisions. Good decisions. Important decisions. All by myself. That took time. That took therapy. That took Diane reminding me over and over that I was whole and capable and never broken to begin with. Some days I believed her, some days I didn't. The trauma doesn't just go away because the abuser is in prison. The scars don't just fade because you got justice. You carry it with you. It changes you. But here's what I learned. Here's what I need you to understand if you're listening to this and something feels familiar. If someone in your life is making you doubt your own mind, if you're being told you're too confused to make your own decisions, if you're signing papers you don't understand because someone says it's for your own good. Research proves that half of all people with dementia experience abuse. But here's the thing. I didn't even have dementia. I was just made to believe I did. And during the pandemic, research showed abuse increased to 1 in 5 seniors. We're targets because people think we won't fight back. Because people assume we're too old, too sick, too confused to know what's happening. We're not. So here's my advice. Here's what I wish someone had told me 3 years ago. Never sign papers you don't understand. Not for your spouse, not for your kids, not for anyone. If someone pressures you, that's a red flag. If someone says you're too confused to understand, get a second opinion. Get a third opinion. Get a lawyer. Never give someone total control over your finances. Keep one account that's only yours. One account they can't access. One safety net that remains in your name. Tell someone you trust if things feel wrong. Don't keep it to yourself. Don't make excuses. Don't justify. If your gut says something is wrong, listen to it. And if you have a twin sister who switches plates with you and whispers, "Trust me," believe her. She might be saving your life. I'm sitting in my apartment right now, looking out the window at the street where I used to play as a kid, where Diane and I would run through the fire hydrant spray in the summer and make snow angels in the winter and dream about who we'd become. I became a lot of things: a wife, a worker, a victim, a survivor, a fighter. And now? Now I'm just Margaret, 64 years old, clear-headed, free. I've got black-eyed peas cooking with a ham hock on the stove, just like the ones I made that day. Diane switched our plates. I'm wearing whatever I want. I'm listening to the radio while I crochet. I'm living in my own place with my own name on the lease. I've got my graphite gray Audi A8 parked outside. I've got my sister coming for dinner. I've got my mind back. I've got my life back. And Raymond? He's in prison where he belongs. His family still doesn't believe me, still thinks I'm lying, still sends me angry letters that I throw away without reading. That's their choice, their loss, their burden to carry. I don't need them to believe me. I know the truth. That's enough. The spring breeze is coming through my window right now, carrying the smell of the neighborhood. The train rumbles past. The corner store is playing music. Kids are laughing somewhere down the block. And I'm here, present, whole, mine. That's my happy ending. Not revenge, not seeing him suffer, not getting all my money back. Just me, being myself, in my own space, making my own choices, trusting my own mind. You know what I do now every morning before my feet touch the floor? I still say a prayer. But it's different now. Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for my clear mind. Thank you for my sister. Thank you for the truth. And thank you for teaching me that I was never broken. I was only bent, and bent things can straighten again. Sometimes Diane and I drive around the old neighborhood in my Audi, windows down, radio up, remembering who we used to be and celebrating who we've become. We're 64 years old and we're just getting started. Because here's what I know now. Here's what 2 years of hell and 8 months of fighting and 6 months of healing taught me. You're never too old to start over. You're never too damaged to heal. You're never too far gone to come back. And the person trying to convince you otherwise? The one telling you you're too sick, too confused, too broken? They're lying. They're lying to you the same way Raymond lied to me. Your mind is yours. Your life is yours. Your choices are yours. Don't let anyone take that from you. Don't sign it away. Don't drug it away. Don't excuse it away. Fight for it. And if you can't fight alone, find your Diane. Find your Dr. Harris. Find your Patricia. Find the people who will believe you when you say something is wrong, who will investigate when you say you don't feel safe, who will switch the plates and whisper "trust me" when you need it most. They're out there. I promise you, they're out there. You just have to be brave enough to let them in. So here's my question for you, wherever you're listening from. Miami? Chicago? Seattle? Some small town nobody's heard of? Where are you listening from? Drop it in the comments. Let me know this story reached you. And tell me, what would you have done? If you were in my shoes, if you'd discovered your husband was poisoning you, what would your next move have been? Because here's the thing, we all like to think we'd fight back immediately. But the truth is more complicated. The truth is that abuse works because it makes you doubt yourself. It makes you question your own reality. It makes you small. So what would you have done? Really? Think about it. Talk about it. Share your thoughts. And if this story resonated with you, if you know someone who needs to hear it, hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel. Share it with someone who needs to know they're not alone, that they're not crazy, that they can fight back and win. Because you can. I'm proof of that. I'm 64 years old. I was poisoned and gaslit and robbed and isolated for 2 years, and I'm still here, still whole, still fighting. Still driving my Audi A8 in graphite gray with the windows down and the radio up. Still Margaret Ann Thompson, still me. And that's the best revenge of all.